Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day during your prep period to take the opportunity to shadow one of your EL students. It's much appreciated, and we hope that you get some insight that will possibly change the way that you use instruction in the classroom. So to begin with, I'm going to show you a quote by Ivana Soto. She's the one that wrote Shadowing Multilanguage Learners, which just came out. She updated the language. Instead of saying ELL, the more up-to-date language is now MLL, or multilingual learners, or pluralistic learners. And so I'm going to turn to this quote by Ivana Soto. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to read this quote in silence. Okay. So it is often true, we rarely ever get a step in a student's shoes throughout the school day. And so this is an awesome opportunity for us to take the time to experience what a student of ours experiences. And so what I'm going to do today is just run through the data sheet that you're going to use in order to take the data. And then on next Monday, we will aggregate those data that we collected. By now, you should have selected a student that's outside the bubble of success, ideally a 2.0 or less. And you've gone through the areas to kind of get an idea of what the student's background is in terms of their CELT testing, their LPAC testing, if they have that, CASP, SBAC, and so forth. So you should have a good idea about the academic history of the student that you selected to shadow. So with the EL shadowing protocol form, in this email is the link to the form. You will likely need to print 3 sheets if you're doing single-sided, 2 sheets if you're doing double-sided, because you are taking data every 5 minutes. And on one sheet, you can take a total of 20 minutes of observation data. When using the form, the first thing that you want to do is timestamp every 5 minutes. So every 5 minutes is when you're going to do the observation and write down what it is that you observed on the protocol form. So first column, write your times. Second column, you can write down what the student is doing first and foremost at the beginning, at the top of that 5-minute interval. And so you have a space in the second column to write down your notes. After writing down the notes, you have 3 columns: academic speaking, academic listening, and then student is not listening. And so you are going to pick, or depending on what the activity is that the student is doing, you are going to select one of those 3 columns. And so we'll go over those 3 columns really quickly. The first column is academic speaking. To be clear, we want to emphasize the word academic speaking as opposed to street language or informal language that's happening between student and student, like side talk. And so when we select academic speaking, you have 7 boxes to select from, whether the student is talking student to student, student to teacher, student to small group, student to whole class, teacher to student, teacher to small group, or teacher to whole class. So to pick one, if there's academic speaking happening at the top of the 5 minutes, select one of those 7 boxes based on the activity that's going on. If there is no academic speaking, you might have the option for academic language. And again, select what it is that they're mostly doing. Academic listening, it can be student listening to mostly to the student listening mostly to the teacher, student listening mostly to small group, or student is listening mostly to whole group. And so It could be one-way or two-way communication, but you have one of those 4 boxes to select if there's academic listening happening in the classroom. The last column is student is not listening, and you have one of 2 boxes to check. The student can be reading or writing silently, or the student is off task. So select one of those 2 boxes if the student is not listening or engaging in academic speaking. To be clear, you are only selecting one box out of those 3 columns at the top of every 5 minutes. So they're either speaking, listening, or student is not listening. And so among all those boxes, you're only ticking one box. And I just wanted to make that clear. The last one is any comments. So if you want to write any clarifying questions or analyze comments that would be helpful when analyzing the interactions after we observe, help you remember what was going on, and that will be helpful when we do the debrief and the data aggregation on Monday. All right, here's an example. So here is what you might have had after it being filled out, the protocol form. The time is filled in, the student activity is filled in, and then again, you'll notice that only one of those 3 columns has a box checked. In this case, it's academic speaking, student to student, right? And then the comments on the side, student began writing to the prompt he selected on the computer. So it gives a more clear picture of what was going on during that time period. Couple of things to remember when you're in the classroom. Walk in, be a fly on the wall. If you can, try not to tell the teacher who it is that you're shadowing. We don't want the teacher to change the behavior of the classroom by selecting that student more often than he or she normally would. If you can, try not to interact with other students. We don't want to change the dynamic of the classroom. To get ahead of the observation game, you could fill in the times when you first get to class, the top of every 5 minutes. And then the last one should not be a problem. In my email, I asked you to select a student that you're going to observe on your conference period, and ideally during that conference period they would not have PE. They would have a more of an academic core class. All right, that is it. If you have any questions, I will be in the Google Meet from 8 to 8:30. I'll be likely running through this presentation again, but feel free to stop on in, observe, and then ask questions at the end. Or just shoot me an email if that's a little bit easier for you. Other than that, thank you again for your time. I know you're taking your conference period off to do these observations, and so thank you again for taking the time to shadow and get the experience of what a student goes through in a day. Have a great day.